She was quiet. She, wasn't really out there. She was kind of quiet. Earthy, more earthier.
Susan Atkins and Patricia Krenwinkel rounded up the rest of the people in the house. They were Abigail Folger, heiress to the Folger coffee fortune. She was Wojtek's girlfriend. And there was Jay Sebring, Hollywood's trendy hairstylist. He was a friend of Sharon's. And there was Sharon Tate herself. Tex Watson ordered them all to lie on the floor. Sebring protested loudly, saying that Sharon was pregnant. Watson replied by shooting Sebring through the heart. Watson then tied a rope around Sharon and Abigail's neck. Tex Watson then calmly ordered Susan Atkins to kill Wojtek Frykowski.
She didn't get along with her father, and she gravitated to San Francisco, became a kept woman and a topless dancer, later a gun moll. Certainly you couldn't categorize her background as being average American.
She really knew how to talk. She knew all the right words, and, she just knew how to talk.
Wojtek Frykowski broke free of his bonds and began to struggle with Susan Atkins. She began to flail wildly at him with a bayonet, stabbing him several times in the legs and body. Tex Watson moved as he saw Frykowski racing to the door. He shot him and then bludgeoned him with a gun butt as Frykowski fell into the yard.
Watson was a high school star in basketball, football, and track. I think up until a couple years ago, he held the high school high hurdle track record in the state of Texas. They viewed him as the all-American boy. They thought it was inconceivable that this young man was involved in these murders.
Tall, dark, and handsome, with very deep, steel blue eyes.
In the fracas, Abigail managed to untie the rope around her neck. Krenwinkel grabbed her and another struggle ensued. Tex Watson had come to Krenwinkel's aid. He put an end to the struggle by stabbing Abigail. Watson then ordered Atkins to kill Sharon Tate. Meanwhile, although mortally wounded, Abigail Folger had somehow crawled into the yard next to where her boyfriend Frykowski had fallen. Watson and Krenwinkel then proceeded to stab the already dead Frykowski and Folger many times. Susan Atkins, meanwhile, left a one-word message written in Sharon's blood. Following the sickening slaughter, the killers stole off into the night. When veteran cops arrived on the scene, they were horrified by the viciousness of the slaughter. The first victim, Stephen Parent. He was shot 4 times. His last words, "Please don't hurt me. I won't tell anyone." Only yards from Parent's body lay Wojtek Frykowski. He died fighting like a wild animal. He'd been shot twice, he'd been bludgeoned 13 times and stabbed 51 times. His last words were a cry for help and a scream of defiance towards his killers. Only a few feet away lay his girlfriend, Abigail Folger. She had been stabbed 28 times. And her last words were, as she looked death straight in the eye, she told Tex Watson, "I give up. Take me." And inside the house, the bloody carnage was just as shocking. Jay Sebring, shot once, stabbed 16 times. His last words were, trying to protect Sharon Tate. And only a few feet away, little Sharon. Sharon and Jay were tied together by a length of rope. She had been stabbed 16 times. Sharon was 8 months pregnant, and her last words were, "Please let me go. All I want to do is have my baby." The following night, Manson killers struck again at the home of Lino and Rosemary LaBianca, killing the innocent couple in an equally senseless rampage. This time, their blood epithet was the title of the Beatles' song, Helter Skelter. Thinking that the Tate murders were drug-related, police thought they had a copycat killer on their hands. LAPD Lieutenant Robert Helder headed up the investigative task force working on the Tate-LaBianca murders. Now retired, he remembers arriving on the scene on Cielo Drive.
It was almost unbelievable because it was more like a slaughterhouse. Normally, if you can call any homicide normal, you're going to find a body or maybe 2 bodies. And again, normally they're going to be confined to a particular space. But this was bodies everywhere. It just was almost unbelievable.
And we'll be back with more of the Sharon Tate murders after this. Back now to our special edition. Our reporter Steve Dunleavy and the night Sharon Tate and 4 others died.
The Tate LaBianca murders came at a chronological and spiritual end to the 1960s. It seems ironic that within a month of the most notorious murders in this country's history, U.S. troops began the long, slow withdrawal from the Vietnam War. More than 300,000 people attended the Woodstock Music Festival in upstate New York, and Neil Armstrong took one small step for man and one giant leap for mankind on the face of the moon. Sharon Tate's funeral brought out some of the biggest names in Hollywood, but the spectacle of the event could not overshadow the family's grief. For the few weeks following the murders, police were stymied by the case. In the absence of any concrete information from police, the public speculated wildly and cruelly. All kinds of rumors wormed their way into the Hollywood grapevine. One speculated that the victims were Satanists and that because of a movie role as a witch with David Niven, Sharon brought it on the group. To a tearful Roman Polanski, the talk defaming his murdered wife was more than he could bear.
The last film she made was not a very happy experience for her, but her greatest picture she was doing was her pregnancy. I never seen a woman more preoccupied with it.
In fact, the murderers lived a far more depraved existence than anyone might have speculated about the victims.
Did sex play a role in this family?
Yes. Yes, free sex. Sex between the girls, sex between the guys, sex between the girls and guys. Anything that you wanted to do was acceptable as far as Charlie Manson was concerned. You do whatever you want to do because that's your right.
A new girl joining the family, he would induce her to have sex with another girl, a boy with a boy. It was pretty obvious what he was trying to do. He was trying to break down their ego and their pride. They were having orgies all the time, but what was happening? What was happening during these orgies? Well, Manson was the maestro, conducting what everyone else did. No one else touched anyone else or kissed anyone else or made love to anyone else unless Manson told them to do so.
Manson also controlled other feelings.
Each and every one of us was asked if we had any remorse. And I wasn't sure how I should react to Charlie asking that. And I just kind of followed suit with everybody else, no remorse.
Sharon Tate's mother, Doris, attends parole hearings for the Manson killers. Doris wants to make sure that no Manson murderer ever gets out of jail.
They are even less than animals. When an animal kills, he kills to eat. What do these people kill for? That's what I don't understand. I will never understand why one human being wants to kill another.
Charles Manson, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Tex Watson had their death sentences reduced to life imprisonment. And where there's life, there's more.
Susan Atkins has remarried. She has conjugal visits. She's co-authored a book. She says she's very happy. And when you stop to think of what she did, it says something about justice in America.
From those conjugal visitations, Watson has had 2 children.
Are you telling me
Yes, I
that
am.
Tex Watson, the leader of this terrible massacre, has conjugal rights?
Absolutely.
He has a right to make love to a woman while in jail.
Absolutely.
And what has come out of that? There's been 2 children?
2 children.
If we define justice as giving a person his or her due, be it praise for a good deed or punishment for a crime, justice has been frustrated in this case. Susan Atkins has beaten the rap.
Lieutenant, what would you say right now if you came face to face with Charles Manson?
As far as I'm concerned, the man is already dead. And I hope he lays in there and rots. That's... You get no sympathy or anything from me. The man's a piece of garbage.
What would you like to tell the Tates?
I'm really sorry. I know sorry doesn't come close to it.
It all seems inconceivable that the last time I spoke to Sharon and she talked about her dreams of having children, that it would all end here. Beautiful Hollywood cemetery of the Holy Cross, surrounded by late